warm welcome from my end. My name is Maximilian. Initially, I'm from Mercedes-Benz, coming all the way from our headquarters in Stuttgart. No, I'm joking. For me, it's always home game here. And if you listen to the speech of Daniel and Roman, you have now a basic understanding of what Catena-X is about. And I'm here today to talk about Catena-X kids especially. One of our most famous use cases in Catena-X is called traceability. And the challenge here is that we want to build a data-driven value chain, coming from an OEM to a first-tier supplier, to a second-tier supplier, to a third-tier supplier, and so on and so on. Our supply chain is very long and strong. But the challenge here is that these participants in the value chain have maybe different systems that need to communicate with each other and exchange data. So how can we solve that? How can we bring those companies better together? And I think, again, we want to build a data-driven value chain. And this is what we see as a minimal setup. First, we need to speak the same language in the data space. And that's what we make sure with our semantic models. The second thing is that we want to come to the same results. So we will need to use the same calculation methods, the same logic. For example, a CO2 footprint. Everyone right now wants to calculate a CO2 footprint. It's a pretty famous topic if you look into the news right now. But if we don't use the same methods, how will this help? The third important thing that we see is our communication. So in this value chain, we have different partners with different systems that need to communicate with each other. And I think if we use the same open API protocols, then it could work. The fourth important thing that we see here as the minimal setup is that we need to make sure that we keep control over our data. And as you already heard, the Eclipse data space connector is one of the technologies that supports us there. So we can create our policies, we can create digital binding contracts for exchanging data. And this is the minimal setup. And this is what we call a kit. And this means for us, keep it together for making sure that our two main principles are secured. And this is interoperability and data sovereignty. And Catena-X Kits provides software components, standards, policies, and even deployment scripts to make it really easy to join the data space and the ecosystem of Catena-X. And to make it a little bit more maybe easy to understand or a little bit more concrete, and being honest with you, we got inspired by a company that we all know. And this is Apple. I think we do it a little bit different because we follow an open and collaborative approach here. But there's also another thing for the open and collaborative approach. We are part of the Eclipse Foundation, and you heard a lot about Catena-X. I don't know if you are aware of Traceability, because that's the open source project here. And to give a short overview how you could find us, we have a domain that's called tractus-x.com. This is how it looks. We use GitHub web pages to make everything a little bit easier to find and to read through. I hope I can play it. It's a video. Yes. So you get a basic understanding on what Traceability is about. You find all the kits that are already available. We have a FAQ section for sure. If you go to the head navigation, you will find all the news that we publish. I think Daniel showed us the open planning days and also our Eclipse Community Day. You find an introduction to the kits and core services, the developer hub with all the governance topics that you need to follow, an overview of all of our products, all the repositories that are there, and the change log. So what is new with the next release? Coming back to the theoretical part, I would say, Roman, you stealed my slide design and you switched up the roles. So I don't want to confuse you. What Roman showed is now, what on Roman's slides was on the lower end is now on my top. So an adopter is for us someone that provides data to the ecosystem. Maybe a large company like Mercedes-Benz. We have our own IT landscape, we have our own systems, and we want to connect those systems to the data space. The second stakeholder we see, and this is one of our main stakeholders, I guess, are the solution providers that Roman also showed. Companies that provide applications, services to the data space for solving problems that we have in the automotive industry. And the use cases that we have in Catena-X, we cluster them in 4 main domains. The first one is the network and core services with what Daniel, I think, mentioned, identity and access management, or the Catena-X marketplace, where you at the end can buy applications. The second thing is sustainability. I think a very important and famous topic right now with CO2 footprint calculation, battery passport, circular economy. The third one is resiliency with demand and capacity management and a lot of use cases that are very close to our production plants, and PLM and quality with the traceability, for example. I think there are many more use cases inside of these domains, but what I want to say is, for each of those use cases, we will provide a kit to make it really easy for data providers and solution providers to interact with or to integrate into the ecosystem. And I just showed you the minimal setup at the beginning. So these are like the mandatory things we need to make sure about interoperability and data sovereignty. And this is now the full-blown kit toolbox that we see. On the first layer, you have like what we call the adoption view. It's a kind of information layer where you get informed about the vision and mission of the kit, about the business value. Why are we doing this? Which industry problem are we solving here? To get a basic understanding, does that help me? Do I want to use this maybe? And also some videos and stuff to get an easy understanding. On the second layer is what I already showed. This is also where our standard area is. The semantic models, that we speak the same language. The logic and schema, that we use the same methods. Business processes, and the access and usage policies, that we keep the control over our data. The third layer is what we call the development view. So it's more focusing on real developers with the API specifications, the protocols. And if you implemented an API, then we also provide sample data to test it out. Catena-X also tries to provide for each use case at least one reference implementation and architecture to understand it. The fourth layer is what we call the operations view. It's really about quick setup guides, deployment scripts to keep an API running or to make a reference implementation available in your environment or even in your local. And to make this a little bit more concrete, I want to show you one example with the Traceability Kit. So the Traceability Kit, again, is about making this vision of a data-driven value chain realizable. And this is what they show with their vision and mission. But if we go one layer down to the semantic models, they already provide now a semantic model for the bill of material as planned and the bill of material as built. So you know how your data should look like if you want to exchange it in the ecosystem. And on the next thing, they also provide access and usage policies as examples that you could use how your contracts look like if you want to exchange data. So for example, as Mercedes wants to exchange data with ZF Friedrichshafen, we could do that on a specific purpose. So maybe we have problem with the quality of a part. So then we could say, yes, you could use this data, you could do some analysis on the problem, but just for that specific purpose and maybe just for 1 week. On the next level, if we go to the green area, it's about API specifications, and what the Traceability Kit already now published is a notification API. So you maybe remember this world map and the different companies and different systems. This API would help that these systems can send notifications to each other no matter which technology on system base you're using. And then sample data to test that out. And on the next box, we have the reference implementations that they provide. I mentioned each use case will publish at least one. They already published 2 reference implementations. The one is called Trace-X. It's basically you can register all your parts, and then if you have a quality issue with a part, you can send out a notification to another partner. And for example, this reference implementation is available fully open source. So as Mercedes, for example, we could take this application, run it in our own environment, and we would have a solution for free. And then if we say, this fits 90% of our requirements, but 10% are missing, we could add the 10%, the features by ourselves. This second application is a simple data exchange app. So that makes it really simple to provide data to the data space. It has a really simple UI. And here I would also like to make another example. Maybe you are a solution provider and you want to provide an application to the Catena-X marketplace. You could take this reference implementation, extend it with a nicer UI, put some more functions in it, and then you can commercialize it. You could sell it over the Catena-X marketplace if you want. So you get the foundation for free, extend it with some features, and then you could sell it. The architecture, that you get an understanding of this reference implementations, the APIs, and so on. And on the last layer, the quick setup guides and deployment scripts. And to give you a little bit further details on that, I just screenshotted another kit out of our Traceability page. It's the data chain kit that you get a better feeling on how this will look like. So this is like the adoption view with the vision and mission. If you want to get an understanding on the API, we have the development view with the open API specification, where you can go through each and every endpoint, get familiar with what this endpoint is about, how the response body looks, and so on. And if you go to the deployment, the operations view, you get a detailed description, step by step, how you can deploy this locally or even in an environment. And let's come to what we achieved so far. Just one fun fact, in Q4 2022, by commits, we have the highest commit rate in the Eclipse Foundation over all projects. I think I tried, Angelika, you know, I tried to get the latest numbers, but I don't think that we are on #1 anymore. But I think this was a nice achievement, so you still see that this community is already pretty active. Another KPI that I brought today is our standards. As Daniel and Roman already mentioned, with these standards, you can get certified with the Catena-X Association and can publish and provide a solution, application, or service to the Catena-X marketplace. And with the first release, we already published 43 standards. With the latest release in September, we published 80, so we are now at 80. And with the next release coming in September, we publish 31 more standards. So we are then with 111 standards in 1 year. I think this is also a big achievement for us. And also coming to the kits part, we already published 10 kits now available if you go to tractus-x.com. And there is also a lot more to come. This is like the history, and with the next release in December, at least every domain publishes 3 kits We will then be at a number of 16 kits available in December this year, and I think this will also be a huge step for Catena-X, enabling solution providers and data providers to participate in use cases. And why are kits so important for us? I think I don't need to explain it why we do it in an open source manner, but I think all the companies in an automotive supply chain cannot solve those problems alone. So that's why we want to be innovative, we want to be open, and that's why we do it under the hood and guidance of the Eclipse Foundation. And also, if we do it in open source, everyone has access to the source code, and for us that fosters trust for sure. And I think Catena-X is still a pretty early project. I think we are almost 2 years in it, but as such a complex and big project, I think this is still an early phase. So I think this is just a start, and Catena-X will grow a lot more in the upcoming years. And also, I just want to mention that the Eclipse Traceability Community Days are in front of us, 7th and 8th December 2023. If you go to track-this-x.com and go to the news section, there you will find the whole agenda. You will find the registration form. So I just wanted to make sure that everyone is sure about that and don't miss out. That's from my end. Thank you very much. I'm also here the whole day, so if you have questions now or later, feel free.
Thank you, Max. Any questions? If not, I have something for clarification. So did I understand it right? KITS is not an abbreviation, it's the plural of a number of toolboxes, right?
Yes, so we see KIT means for us, keep it together.
Okay.
It's not like an SDK, but for us it's like a toolbox of artifacts that we provide for each use case in Catena-X.
Okay, thank you. Questions so far? There's one.
Yeah, good question. Because the standards are not part of the open source project, it's part or published with the association of Catena-X. You have to go to catena-x.net. So it's the association website, and they have a standard library available. Yes, first, as on the slide of Daniel, you maybe saw in this operating environment, no, it was not, it was a development environment, the consortia. So these are the 28 companies that founded Catena-X. They started now with creating those standards and also publishing them over the association. But in the future, there will be more companies joining the association. There will be working groups inside of the association to develop further standards. But the first shot now was done mostly by the consortia companies. Yes, by the Catena, not by the Eclipse open source Traceability community, but by the Catena-X association community. Yes, sure.
Further questions? If not, then thank you, Max, for your presentation. And now